Grant Mercer had read the letters so many times he could see the words even with his eyes closed. On the loneliest nights, when the wind screamed across the Wyoming Range and the ranch house felt like a hollow box, those pages were the only warmth he had. The ink promised a woman who understood quiet, who knew what it meant to start over, who spoke about hope like it was a real thing you could hold. Grant believed every line because he needed to. Christmas Eve came wrapped in silence. Snow fell thick and slow, covering the valley like a clean sheet pulled over an old wound. The sky hung low and gray, and the world looked softer, almost gentle, the way it never looked in summer. Grant stood on the porch of his small ranch house and did not go back inside. He did not care how the cold bit his cheeks or how his fingers stiffened. He wore his best clothes, a light blue shirt and a black vest, the outfit he saved for church and funerals. Tonight felt like both. The stagecoach was late. Each minute stretched until Grant's heart felt sore from waiting. Then, through the curtain of falling snow, a dark shape finally moved along the trail. The horses fought the drifts, and the driver sat hunched in furs like a man carved from the storm. The coach pulled up hard in front of the house, and the wheels groaned to a stop. Grant stepped down into the snow, boots crunching loud in the quiet. He watched the carriage door with a tight throat and shaking hands. He expected one woman, one face, one life to begin. The door opened. Two women stepped out. They were the same height, the same build, the same face, so alike it made Grant's stomach drop. Their skin looked pale against the winter white, and their dark hair was pinned neatly beneath the edges of their silk hoods. They wore matching embroidered dresses that shimmered even in the dim light. Around both their necks were bright red scarves that snapped in the wind like small flames. Each carried a lacquered traveling case, each wore a jade pendant, and each looked at Grant like she had been brought to the wrong world. One moved with quiet grace, hands tucked inside her sleeves, eyes wide with worry and wonder. The other moved with a hard steadiness, chin lifted, gaze sharp, like she was already counting exits and threats. Grant could not speak for a moment. His breath came out in a white cloud and hung between them. "Mr. Mercer," the gentle one said. Her voice was soft, careful. "I am Mei Lin. I am your bride." "No," the other said, stepping closer as if to block the wind and everything else. Her voice had iron in it. "I am Mei Ying, and something is wrong." Grant's hand went to his vest pocket without thinking. The letters were there, folded and worn from his fingers. 3 months of writing. 3 months of believing. He looked from one face to the other, searching for some clue that would make sense of what he was seeing. The driver tipped his hat like he had delivered flour and not trouble. He cracked the whip, eager to escape the storm, and the stagecoach rolled away. In seconds, the sound of hooves faded, leaving Grant alone with two strangers, and a future that suddenly felt like a trap. "Please," Grant managed, voice rough from cold and shock. "You'll freeze out here. Come inside. We'll talk by the fire." The main room smelled of pine and smoke. The fire snapped and popped, throwing orange light across rough timber walls. Grant poured tea, but his hands trembled, as if the cup weighed too much. Mei Lin sat close to the hearth, scarf still around her throat, eyes lowered to her lap. Mei Ying sat straighter, as if she refused to let the chair hold her. Grant tried to steady himself with questions. "In the letters," he said, "you wrote about the river, about how water gives way, but it always wins in the end." "I wrote that," Mei Lin said. "I wrote that," Mei Ying said at the same time. Grant frowned and forced another memory out. The Lantern Festival in San Francisco, the smell of sweet cakes and smoke in the street. Mei Lin swallowed. "That was me." Mei Ying's eyes did not blink. "That was me." The room tightened around them. Grant felt the floor shift under his boots like ice cracking. He looked at the two women and saw fear in one, anger in the other, and the same truth sitting behind both faces. "This makes no sense," Grant said, running a hand through his hair. "How can you both know what I was told?" How can you both be the one who wrote me? Mei Ying leaned forward, voice low. Because we are twins. Someone used that. Mei Lin's hands tightened together. Our aunt raised us after our parents died, she whispered. She arranged everything. She told us it was for our safety. Mei Ying's mouth hardened. She did more than arrange it. We found the letters she sent. She took words from both of us. Mei Lin's poems, my skills, our stories, our memories. She made one perfect woman out of two lives. Grant stared at the tea that had gone cold in his cup. Why would she do that? Mei Lin's eyes filled, but she did not cry. Because she owed money. Before Grant could ask who, the front door opened. Cold air rushed in, and snow blew across the floorboards. A tall man stepped inside as if he owned the place. He wore a heavy fur coat dusted with white, and his smile was thin and sharp. Grant knew that face. Everyone in the valley did. Victor Holloway! 2 gunmen followed him in, hands resting near their holsters like it was the most natural thing in the world. Grant stood so fast, his chair scraped the floor. Holloway, he growled, get out of my house. Holloway's eyes slid to the twins, and the smile grew colder. Now, Mercer, he said softly, it's Christmas Eve. I came to welcome your guests. Mei Ying rose beside Mei Lin like a shield. Holloway's gaze stayed on them as he spoke to Grant. And to collect what is owed. Grant's jaw tightened as Victor Holloway stepped farther into the room like he belonged there. The firelight showed the hard lines in his face and the calm pride of a man who never heard the word no. The 2 gunmen stayed close behind him, quiet as fences, watching Grant's hands more than his eyes. You picked a fine night to show your face, Grant said. His voice was low, steady, but heat lived under it. Holloway chuckled. A fine night for new beginnings, also a fine night to settle old accounts. He looked at the twins again. Your aunt in San Francisco is a woman with big habits. Cards, drink, and the wrong friends. Mei Lin's shoulders pulled inward like the cold had returned. Mei Ying stayed tall, but her eyes burned. Grant took a step forward. You were telling me their aunt owes you money, so you came to my ranch to talk about it. That is not how debt works. Holloway reached into his coat and pulled out a folded paper. He opened it with slow care and held it up like a prize. This is how it works when the debt is tied to a marriage contract. Your bride's family debts pass to the husband when the union is made. That was the deal. Your name is already written here, Mercer. Grant did not take the paper. He stared at it, then stared at the twins. Did you know about this? Quote. Mei Lin shook her head fast. No, we did not know. Mei Ying's voice came sharp. Our aunt hid it. She told us this was a safe home. She told us you were a good man who wanted a wife, not a bargain. Holloway's smile did not move. Good men are easy to use. They want simple things. A warm home, a gentle wife, a clean start. They sign papers without reading the small words. Grant felt the blood pound behind his ears. I have not married anyone. Not yet, Holloway said. But your guests are here now. And the law in this country can be cruel when it wants to be. He tipped his head toward the twins. 2 women with no husband, no proper papers, no family here. That makes them trouble in the eyes of certain men. Mei Lin's fingers tightened around her teacup until her knuckles went pale. Mei Ying took a step closer to Holloway. So this is your plan. You use fear to force him. Holloway's eyes narrowed a little, as if he did not like her courage. My plan is simple. Mercer has land I want. He refused to sell, so I found a way to make him pay. Holloway tapped the paper. He marries one of you, the debt becomes his, and I take the ranch when he cannot pay. Or he signs the deed to me tonight, and I make sure the sheriff looks the other way about 2 foreign women showing up on Christmas Eve. Quote. Grant's hand clenched into a fist. He thought of the letters in his vest pocket, the hope he had carried like a lantern through dark seasons. He looked at Mei Lin's frightened face, and then at Mei Ying's steady one. Both of them had been dragged into this like animals in a snare. "You are not taking my ranch," Grant said, "and you are not taking them." Holloway shrugged. "Then you will wake to smoke. Or you will wake to a deputy on your porch with chains. Either way, you lose." Maylin's voice came small but clear. "We did not come only because of the letters." Grant turned to her. "What do you mean?" Mei Ying reached for their lacquered case and opened it with careful hands. One of the gunmen shifted, but she only pulled out a rolled cloth tied with red string. She laid it on the table and unrolled it slowly. A map. Old ink lines showed hills, a creek, and marks that looked like survey points. There was a name written at the corner, but it did not match either twin's name. "Our father worked with railroad men," Mei Ying said. "He was a surveyor. He walked land and measured it. Before he died, he found gold in the hills near this valley. He filed a claim under a false name to hide it from men like you." Holloway leaned in, greedy interest pulling him forward before he could stop himself. "Gold." Maylin nodded, finding courage as she spoke. "Our aunt found this map after he died. She wanted the claim but could not travel alone. She used us as a way to cross the country. She used the letters to place us with a man she thought was safe. Then she tried to sell our future to you." Grant stared at the map, then at the twins. He saw the truth in their faces. They were not actors. They were survivors. Holloway's smile returned, but it looked like a knife now. "If that claim is real, then the debt is nothing compared to what it is worth." His voice dropped softer. "And if it is real, I cannot let you keep it." Grant felt the air change. He saw it in the way Holloway's gunmen shifted their feet. He saw it in Holloway's eyes, the cold decision settling in. "Victor," Grant warned, "do not do this." Quote, Holloway lifted his hand, and the gunman moved. "You should have sold to me when you had the chance," Holloway said. "Now I will take everything." The first gunshot cracked like a branch snapping in the night. The bullet tore into the wall near the fireplace, sending wood splinters flying. Mei Lin screamed once, then covered her mouth with both hands. Grant grabbed the table and shoved it on its side, pulling both women down behind it. "Stay low," Grant said through his teeth. Another shot slammed into the floorboards. The twins pressed close, shaking, but they did not run. Mei Ying grabbed the heavy iron poker from the hearth. Her hands did not tremble. "If they come near her," she whispered, "I will break them." Mei Lin's eyes darted to the shelf where a lantern sat. She reached for it, then grabbed a bottle from the kitchen counter, the kind Grant used for cleaning wounds and lighting fires. She clutched both like she had decided she would not be helpless. Outside, a new smell drifted in through the cracks of the walls. Smoke. Grant's stomach dropped. He heard the faint scream of horses from the barn, wild and desperate. "They set the barn on fire," Grant said, voice tight with rage. Holloway's voice carried through the room, calm as a prayer. "Burn it. Make it look like a Christmas accident." Grant's eyes locked on the back door. His mind worked fast. If the barn went up, the horses would die. If the house caught, none of them would make it out. "Mei Ying," Grant said, keeping his voice low, "can you hold them here for a moment?" Mei Ying's gaze did not break. "Yes." Grant looked at Mei Lin. Her cheeks were wet, but her grip was firm on the lantern and bottle. She swallowed hard and nodded like she was making a promise. Grant slid on his stomach across the floor, keeping behind cover. Another shot hit the table leg and the wood jumped. Grant reached the kitchen, grabbed his scattergun from where it hung, and checked it with hands that moved like muscle memory. The smoke smell grew stronger. Grant tightened his grip and turned back toward the room, ready to move. Then the front of the house shuddered as something heavy slammed against the door from outside, and the flame glow flickered through the window like the night itself was catching fire. The house shook again, and the front window flashed orange as firelight jumped across the snow outside. Grant's chest tightened when he heard the barn door bang and the high, frightened scream of a horse. That sound cut deeper than any gunshot. He had raised those animals from colts, fed them through hard winters, and talked to them when there was no one else to speak to. Grant slid back toward the main room with the scattergun tight in his hands. Smoke was already slipping in through the cracks around the doorframe. He could hear Holloway's men outside moving fast, laughing low like they were enjoying the work. Behind the overturned table, Mei Ying kept her body angled toward danger, the iron poker held like a club. Mei Lin clutched the lantern and the bottle, her fingers white from how hard she squeezed. Her eyes were wet, but they were awake now, watching, learning, refusing to break. Grant leaned close to them. "Listen," he whispered. "The barn is on fire. If those horses don't get out, they die. I have to reach the corral." Mei Lin shook her head, fear rising in her face. "They will kill you." Mei Ying's jaw set. "He still has to go." Grant looked at both of them and felt something settle in his chest. It was not just pity. It was not just duty. It was the kind of fierce care a man feels when someone innocent is dragged into his fight. "I need you to keep them off me," Grant said. He nodded at the lantern and bottle. "If they come through the door, use it." Mei Lin swallowed hard. "I have never hurt anyone." Mei Ying glanced at her sister, then at the door. "Tonight is not about what we want. It is about what we must do." Grant took a breath and spoke fast, like he was cutting rope. "If we live through this, you can choose whatever names you want here. You do not owe anybody anything." Mei Lin blinked at him. "Names?" Grant gave a tight, quick nod. "This country will try to label you. You pick your own." Mei Lin's voice came out small. "Lily. I want Lily." Mei Ying's eyes did not soften, but her voice dropped. "And I will be Maggie." Grant held their gaze for a heartbeat, then moved. He slipped out the back door into the storm. The cold hit him hard, like a shove. Snow spun sideways in the wind, and the barn fire threw wild shadows across the yard. The flames climbed fast, licking the roof beams, turning the night into a shaking orange nightmare. Grant ran low, keeping close to the stable wall. He saw one of Holloway's men near the porch, sloshing kerosene from a can onto the steps. The man turned, surprised, and his hand went for his pistol. Grant fired first. The scattergun thundered, and the man dropped with a scream, clutching his leg as he fell into the snow. The kerosene can tipped and spilled, its sharp smell cutting through smoke and cold. Grant did not stop to watch. He sprinted toward the barn. Heat punched him in the face as he reached the doors. Inside, the horses slammed against stalls, eyes white, bodies shaking. Fire snapped overhead and sent sparks raining down like angry insects. "Easy," Grant shouted, voice raw. "Easy, boys. I'm here." He yanked the stall latches, one after another, hands burning from the metal and the heat. The first horse bolted out into the snow, then another, then another, hooves sliding on ice as they fled into the dark. Grant kept moving, coughing, eyes stinging. He pushed the last mare out, and she ran hard toward the open field. A shadow shifted near the stables. Grant turned, breath sharp in his chest. Victor Holloway stepped out from behind a post, revolver raised, face calm like he was holding a glass of whiskey instead of a man's life. Smoke rolled around him, making his fur coat look like a dark cloud. "You have spirit, Mercer," Holloway said. "That spirit will get you buried." Grant lifted his scattergun, but Holloway already had the angle. Grant knew it in his bones. One shot from that revolver, and everything ended. Holloway smiled. "Drop it." Grant's hands tightened. His mind raced. The twins were inside. The house was at risk. The map was still on the table. If Holloway got it, he would hunt them to the ends of the earth. Then a sound cut through the wind. A sharp, piercing whistle, high and steady, not a bird and not the storm. Grant's eyes flicked toward the house. In the open doorway stood Lily, lantern held high. Firelight from the barn painted her face in gold and shadow. Her red scarf streamed behind her, bright as blood in the snow. "Over here!" she shouted, voice breaking but brave. "Over here, you devil!" Holloway's head turned without thinking, his eyes narrowing at the unexpected challenge. His attention shifted, just for a breath. That breath was enough. From the porch railing, Maggie launched herself into the yard like a thrown stone. She moved fast, scarf trailing, dress whipping in the wind. In her hands was the iron poker, raised high. She slammed it down onto Holloway's gun arm with a crack that Grant felt even from where he stood. Holloway roared. His revolver flew into the snow, skidding and vanishing in the white. He swung his other hand and struck Maggie hard across the face, sending her sprawling into a drift. Lily screamed and ran toward her sister, but smoke and panic tangled her steps. Grant surged forward. He tackled Holloway, driving him down into mud and slush beside the burning barn. The two men rolled, fists flying, breath coming out in harsh white bursts. Holloway fought like a man who had never lost, but Grant fought like a man who had finally found something worth dying for. They slammed into the ground. Grant's knuckles split. Holloway's elbow drove into Grant's ribs. Pain flared, hot and bright. Grant gritted his teeth and kept going, landing a punch that snapped Holloway's head to the side. Then a gunshot rang out. Grant froze mid-motion, every muscle locking. For a heartbeat, he did not know who had fired. He did not know who had fallen. The barn crackled behind him. The wind screamed. Lily's lantern shook in her hand, and Maggie, still in the snow, looked up with wide eyes as if she had just seen the future change in one violent second. The gunshot echoed across the frozen yard, sharp as a whip crack. Grant stopped moving, his chest heaving, his fists still clenched around Victor Holloway's coat. Snow drifted into his hair, melting against his hot skin. For one terrible moment, he thought the bullet had found Maggie. Then he heard a horse snort in the dark, steady and alive, and he realized the sound had come from farther out. A voice called through the storm, "Grant Mercer, get off him!" Grant looked up. Sheriff Dalton sat on a horse at the edge of the property, rifle still raised. Two deputies flanked him, their faces hard and their guns ready. Smoke curled from the sheriff's barrel, and the orange light from the burning barn flickered over their coats. Holloway's eyes widened, then narrowed into hate. "Dalton!" He hissed like the name was poison. The sheriff did not blink. "Merry Christmas, Holloway. I got a telegram from San Francisco about 2 missing Chinese sisters in a debt scam tied to forged papers. Your name showed up in more than one place. Seems you have been running a long time." Holloway tried to shift under Grant, but Grant pressed him down with a knee. "He tried to burn us alive," Grant said, voice shaking with rage. "He set my barn on fire. He shot at us in my house." Dalton nodded once like he believed every word because he had already seen enough smoke to know the truth. "Deputies, take him." The deputies moved in quick, dragging Holloway up from the slush. Holloway struggled, but a hard strike to his ribs stole the fight from him. His gunmen, seeing the law and realizing the game had turned, tried to run. One limped into the snow, but a deputy tackled him. The other raised his hands when Dalton's rifle tracked him like a hawk. Grant stumbled back and turned toward the porch. Maggie sat in the snow, one arm wrapped around her side where she had landed. Her cheek was red from Holloway's strike, but her eyes were bright and alive. Lily dropped beside her, pulling her close, her lantern shaking in her hand. "Are you hurt?" Grant asked, dropping to his knees. Maggie breathed out slow. "I have felt worse," she said, trying to sound tough, but her voice wavered. Lily's tears spilled freely now. "She saved you," she whispered to Grant. "I only made noise." Grant shook his head. "You did more than noise. You turned his head. You gave us a chance." Behind them, men ran with buckets and shovels. The deputies and ranch hands fought the barn fire where they could, throwing snow and water. Some of the horses had already fled into the darkness, but many stood out in the open field now, trembling yet alive. Grant watched them, relief hitting him like a wave that almost knocked him over. Sheriff Dalton walked closer, boots crunching. He looked at the twins, then at the map still clutched in Lily's hand. "Those the sisters from the telegram?" Lily nodded, wiping her face. "Yes, sir." Dalton's expression softened just a little. "You are safe here tonight. No one is taking you back by force. Not on my watch." Maggie lifted her chin. "Our aunt lied. She used our names. She used his heart." Dalton sighed. "I have seen a lot of evil in my bad years. That lie is up there with the worst." We will deal with it the right way." He looked at Grant. "As for those papers Holloway waved around, if they are tied to fraud, they will not hold in court." Grant's shoulders loosened for the first time that night. He took a slow breath, tasting smoke and snow. By the time the first pale light of morning touched the mountains, the worst of the fire was dead. The barn stood blackened, wounded but not gone. The house still stood. The horses were alive. Holloway sat in irons in a wagon, his face dark with defeat as the sheriff prepared to haul him to town. Inside the house, the warmth felt different now. The danger had passed, but the quiet left behind felt heavy. Grant sat at the table with Lily and Maggie across from him. Their red scarves were still around their necks, but now they looked like a sign of survival instead of decoration. Lily's hands shook when she lifted her cup. Maggie held hers steady, though every movement showed pain. "The sheriff said the debt is void," Grant told them. "The scam falls apart without real papers. You are free." Lily stared down at the tea. "Free to go where?" Maggie's eyes met Grant's. "We have no home to return to. Our aunt is the reason we fled. If we go back to fear." Grant nodded slowly. He understood that kind of fear. He had lived with it in a different shape, in different clothes, but he knew it. "Then stay here," he said, before he could talk himself out of it. "Not because of any contract. Not because of letters. Because you deserve a safe roof." Lily looked up, surprise and hope fighting in her eyes. "But you wanted a bride." Grant's fingers touched the pocket where the letters still rested. "I wanted a life I could share with someone," he said. "I wanted kindness in my home. I thought it came in one person. Maybe I was wrong about the shape of it, but not the truth of it." Maggie leaned back slightly, watching him with the careful stare of someone who had been tricked too many times. "You will not own us." Grant's voice stayed calm. "I do not want to own anyone. I want partners, family." Lily's voice trembled. "People will talk." Grant let out a quiet breath. "People talk about anything that scares them. They talked when I built this place alone. They talked when my mother died and I stayed out here instead of moving to town. Talking never fed me, never saved me, never warmed my nights. Only truth did." Maggie's eyes flicked to Lily. The sisters shared a look that held a whole conversation without words. Then Lily reached for Grant's hand first, tentative, like touching something fragile. "I came in fear," Lily said softly. "But tonight I saw your heart. You fought for us when you did not have to." Maggie's hand followed, strong and sure despite the bruise on her cheek. "And we fought for you," she said. "Because the man in the letters was real, even if the letters were not honest." Grant swallowed hard. The fire popped behind him, and outside the world was clean again under fresh snow. Christmas morning had arrived, quiet and bright, like the land itself had been given another chance. Grant held both their hands. "Then we start over," he said. "Not as a mistake, not as a deal, as a choice." That morning there was no church bell, no preacher, no crowd. There was only a table, a fire, and 3 people who had walked through smoke together. They did not sign a trap. They spoke simple promises: safety, respect, truth, a home that would not be taken again. In the weeks that followed, Holloway's crimes spread through the valley like wildfire, and the town began to look at Grant's ranch with different eyes. Some whispered, some stared. But the whispers got quieter when people saw Maggie ride like she had been born in the saddle, and when they tasted Lily's food at the church supper and heard her speak gentle words to children who had never been spoken to softly. And when spring came, Grant rode with the twins into the hills with the old map. They found the place their father had marked, and the claim proved real. Not a dream, not a story. Real gold and hard rock, waiting like a blessing hidden under pain. Grant did not become a rich man who forgot the poor. He used the money to rebuild the barn stronger than before. He helped fund a schoolhouse. He paid for a doctor to come through the valley twice a month. Lily and Maggie stood beside him through it all, one with steady kindness, one with fierce fire, and together they made his home feel alive in a way ink on parchment never could, because the best kind of love did not arrive perfect and planned. It arrived messy, unexpected, and brave on Christmas Eve in a snowstorm with two red scarves dancing in the wind.